really busy time for everyone in the run up to Christmas. And especially when we've got the extra stress of Christmas and the end of term, if your kids are at school, and we were just talking, weren't we, about having to do all the Christmas cards for their friends and stuff. But tonight, I just hope that you come away energized and encouraged and empowered as parents, with that kind of renewed love for thinking about play and playfulness. And hopefully we can demystify this whole feeling like you need to be like some kind of clown and like on this kind of crazy play trip all the time. And it's not like that at all. So relax. We're going to have a really special time tonight. And I've entitled this talk, Too Busy Not to Play, because when we are stressed, I think play can really unlock things in our relationship with our child and actually make things easier and more calm and connected. I want you guys to be able to move from chaos to calm and connected. So that, and I'm going to show you this pause, play, connect model that I've built over time and birthed. And this is me. So today we're going to understand why pausing to play is so powerful. We're going to understand about the importance of connection. And I want us to learn how to integrate this pause, play, connect flow into your family system in your way. We're empowered to embrace the power of play your way. Because after working, so I've done 20 years in education, I then went and trained as a play therapist and then became a parent coach. I've also worked in children's services at the real edge of care. So these are teenagers who are at risk of going into foster care or who are in foster care and have gone from placement to placement, and things have broken down so much that we've had to care for them again. And so I have seen every kind of behaviour under the sun. I've seen the effects of addiction, drug taking, child to parent violence, and other things. So as I talk, if anything is triggered in you or you have some questions about the behaviours you're seeing in your family home or friends that are struggling and you're thinking, actually, maybe Debbie could speak into this, then put it in the chat at any time. And at the end, I will be really happy to stay till the end and work through some of those questions with you. So that's me and my two girls. They are now 13 and 15. And they are putting me through my paces. You think you've cracked it and then something else happens, don't you? And you're on this kind of crazy journey as a parent. But I've developed something that I feel is really simple and something that we can use every single day to build connection with our children. Because ultimately, the more connected we feel with ourselves and we feel with our children, the happier and calmer our lives are going to be, in essence. Okay. So this pause, play, connect, flow, it's in a circle because it's just going on and on. I'm going to unpack today, and hopefully by the end you'll think, I get it. I get how maybe this can help me as a parent in my situation. So I'm going to do a few slides just to unpack what play is and the power of play. And then we're going to go into some more real life examples and then look at this pausing and connecting. So there's loads of definitions about what play is. It's still being debated, but I love some of these phrases like it's the child's language, about the process being more important than the end result. I love the words free expression or spontaneous expression and this happy display of known actions. I love this picture of this girl in the leaves. You know, there's no sort of big end goal here. She's experiencing the environment around her, the smells, she's moving, she's feeling what it feels like, and she's just taking it in and doing whatever she feels led to do. You know, it's all kind of flowing, it's bubbling up inside of her. Children are experts at play. They're the experts. And as we grow, sometimes as adults, we kind of lose that play, don't we? So I would love you to use the chat right now if you've got a spare minute to just tell me if any of the numbers of these phrases that I hear all the time from parents, and I've used as well, and I felt over 80% of the parents I work with struggle with play. And let me know kind of whether you've heard yourself saying this or feeling this. So I'm too busy. I know I should. I just don't have time to play. Number two, I've experienced play. I've never experienced play much as a child. I'm in too much pain to play. I work with a lot of parents who maybe have fibromyalgia or a bad back or are restricted with their movement. And it can really affect your feeling of empowerment or your ability to feel like you can enter into play with your child. Number four, play is not a priority. What's so important about play anyway? It's just not in my kind of language. I just don't think about it. I just say go and play and they just do it. Yeah. Number five, I feel uncomfortable and genuinely embarrassed playing with my kids in public. So all of these, there's no right or wrong answer. There's no shame. I'm completely with you guys. We're all on a journey. It's like a spectrum of play. And I'm just going to mute. Can we just make sure we're all muted? That's it, amazing. Yeah, so let me know in the chat if any of those numbers resonate with you. I'm just going to give you about 5 more seconds before I move on, just to write down anything that you feel. And if there's something else that's a barrier to playing with your child right now, I'd love you to just tell me what it is. That's it, amazing. People are putting in how they feel about play and the barriers to play right now. Thank you. Amazing. 3, 2, 1. So how cool is this? If we look in nature, we can see play all around us. I love how dolphins are playful. Obviously, you can go to these kind of parks where they do all the tricks, but actually in nature, you can also see them working together and playing. Cubs playing, you know, they're testing each other's strength, aren't they? They're actually learning through play. They're rehearsing the kinds of skills they're going to need in the wild as they grow. In nature, playful behavior is initiated when an animal is adequately fed, healthy, and not under stress or intense competition. In other words, the animal is in a relaxed state. And today, if you forget everything I've said and it just doesn't make sense, or you're like, I don't know, I want you to come away just attaching the fact that it's very hard to feel playful when we're not relaxed. Yeah, when we're stressed, we don't feel playful. I think I heard a TED talk where it says the opposite to play is depression. And I've experienced depression. I've also experienced intense anxiety in my life. And I know that feeling of being really low and you don't feel playful. You know, the day I decided to take antidepressants about 12 years ago for about just less than a year was when it snowed and I didn't want to take my 2 young children out in the snow. And I was like, that doesn't feel natural. I would normally want to be out in the snow and I just can't be bothered and I just want to stay in. So yeah, so the opposite to play, depression, we need to feel in that relaxed state. So, you know, everyone goes on about self-care. Well, this is another why as to why looking after yourself and learning about your internal states really does matter. I hope this is making sense, and do put some comments in the chat. Another thing on the side, if your child's struggling with learning at the moment, and I'm happy to take questions about any learning things, about school, if they're struggling at school, happy to take questions around this. The optimum learning environment is a relaxed and calm environment that helps the children to feel relaxed and connected, and so that they can be more responsive and they can learn better. And again, if your child's coming into the classroom and feeling tense or heightened, they can't process the information. They might be daydreaming or zoning out or not sitting still. Yeah. So again, being relaxed, this is what we want for our children, isn't it? To feel calm and safe with us and safe with other adults. I'm nearly going through the benefits of play, and I'm just going to quickly fire these off to you. But if you would like a handout with all these benefits of play on them, just private message me on Instagram or LinkedIn or email. I'll give you my email at the end, and I'd happily give you my handout on this if you just want something just to remind you. But we've got all these amazing benefits of play. There's so much research out there, and you can build on your knowledge if you want to. But play increases concentration levels. Well, we want that for our kids, right? It increases empathy. And we want a society full of people who can empathize with one another and show compassion. It increases problem-solving capacity, which is what we want. Again, we don't need children to regurgitate facts, because we've got Google for that. And as our children grow in this archaic kind of education system that wants them to kind of regurgitate facts, we want children who can take the facts at the end here, analogical thinking, and then apply it to other areas. And as children play, even from very, very, very young, they're learning these skills. One beautiful thing is that it can strengthen the bond between parent and child. There's a lovely picture down there, isn't there, of the dad and the child, and there's that lovely eye contact going on. And neuroscientists have found that actual bonds are being formed in the brain as you have that smile and the eye contact, and the child feels attended to. Play helps children to experiment and learn, to express and process their thoughts and feelings, improve social skills, learn about themselves, explore the world around them, build resilience. It's a fantastic way of transitioning from home to school environment. When children are going through transition, I did a podcast specifically for children starting school, and you can find it on Apple and Spotify and things like that, the Play Healing Parent podcast. I'll put the link at the end if you want. But I was giving you advice from a teacher's perspective, from a therapist's perspective, as a play therapist, and as a parent, and giving examples of how we can use play to help our children navigate that change, that transition between one year to another or starting school. And learning how to regulate strong emotional reactions. Wouldn't that be lovely? Our children just constantly calm. Children will always come against sort of really strong emotional reactions. They might have sensory needs, they might have all sorts of special needs, but every child will experience that rage at some point. And we can use play to help them to regulate themselves. And I'll tell you a story about that soon. So you've had a bit of theory, and I'm happy to give you more on that if you'd like to. But let's just go for some examples now of how play can really help to build connection, help children to regulate, help them to process emotions. So I was working with a young man who was about 12, and he was really struggling. He'd been through many, many different foster placements. He'd left the home when he was about maybe 7 or 8. His mum couldn't cope with his behaviours because they're very, very violent and aggressive, and as he grew, he got more and more dysregulated to the point where he needed 3 adults to 1 child. And he came to us after another placement had broken down. He had attacked two workers with metal pole, and we had him for about 11 or 12 or 13 weeks. And coming from a play therapy background, I was able to use play to help him. And things like he taught me how to play Minecraft. And when children, I know the digital world is massive now, and to be able to enter their world, their digital world, is a very powerful thing. I don't always mean just traditional ways of playing, we can come into their digital world with them, and we don't have to be as good as them. So he was teaching me how to play Minecraft, and I was pretty rubbish, to be honest, but he thought it was hilarious. And he had the power. It's like power reversal play. Other things like karaoke, we'd be singing, we'd be dancing. We at one point I was washing his feet because of that sensory experience, reading stories, you know, and at other times he was threatening people and attacking people. But I was able to use play to help to calm his nervous system down, to feel safe, to feel that nurture that maybe that children don't have. If they don't have the nurture when they're 2 and 3 and 4, we can use play to do those kind of nurturing things when they're older. It really needs to be thought through, and we need to be in that kind of calm, regulated state while we're doing it. I've worked with children who've committed sexual abuse towards other children, and seen the power of something like Play-Doh and clay that have helped to regulate them. These are children who will knock on my door saying, can I have a knife? I want to kill myself. You know, very extreme behaviors. But when we use play, you can see how it calms them down or helps them to process in a safer way. Other children, things like who were smashing up the place and throwing things. I brought water balloons so they could throw things still and they could see things break, but it was a safer way of them getting the movement that they needed. They getting that energy, that spent energy out, but in a safer way. And so play is so powerful. It is so powerful. And there's other things that we can do that don't have to be so direct. It's all about the micro moments. Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Whitney have, I think it's that, yeah, have written this book called What Happened to You. And it's quite an easy read. It's quite a nice read, and it really explains the effect of trauma on children's lives and communities. And he was talking about how it's those micro moments where children come up to you and you give them a smile, or they need a hug, or you give them a thumb war. Thumb wars are just brilliant because you get that physical touch and you're looking into their eyes and they're seeing you smiling and you're having a bit of a tug of war, you know, and it's those kinds of things that could just bring a bit of laughter, belly laughter, that fun. It releases endorphins into them and they feel great. So another thing, you know, play doesn't have to be very high energy. It can be calm. It can be you sitting and just observing and letting that child explore or build Lego or create this thing with blocks, or, you know, create this Minecraft world, and just being present and observing and maybe saying, oh, I've noticed that XYZ, or wow, show me how to do that. Let me learn from you. It's just a lovely way of you building that connection together. Okay, I would be absolutely happy to talk about how we can use play to address emotional and behavioural issues. So if you want to put some things in the chat about maybe things that you're struggling with, let me know. I'll give you just a couple more and then we're going to move on to the power of pausing. Child to parent violence is on the increase, and it can be from when they're 5, just coming up to you and just whacking you on the leg and just getting a bit angry, to, you know, when they get older, it can be quite serious. And a lot of the time there's that feeling of helplessness that's going on in that child's body. Sometimes it's because of something they've seen. It might be a traumatic experience, but there's some feedback. And what we've got with what we can do is we can use play to help them feel more empowered and help them to find a way of feeling stable again. Because if something's happened, like they've lost their granddad, for example, someone's died in the family or something, there's that sense of loss. They couldn't control the fact that granddad died. So that feeling of helplessness can cause things like our anger outbursts. So I was working with a single mum who had a sort of 5 or 6 year old boy who'd suddenly become very violent and very angry, would suddenly have big outbursts. And she said, "Can you do play therapy with my son?" And I said, "Well, I could. Probably be about 15 sessions. It's sort of £75 a shot. That's quite a lot of money. Or you can do one-to-one coaching with me, and I can give you the tools to help you to be that safe environment for the child and to use play to help him connect." Because when we put children into therapy, and this is why I don't do direct child therapy anymore, like play therapy, it's really good for certain situations, and we can go into that. But I believe that it takes about 8 sessions, say, for the child to really get to know the therapist, and then they start to process. And it can be quite a long journey. But when you're with the child all the time, you can work on your stuff and you can work with them. They know you, and often they can feel safe with you. Now, there are exceptions to the rules, and I put both of my children in therapy as they've got older, because there is a time where they need someone that's not you and separate. But often we can actually nip things in the bud quite soon if we get in there early. Anyway, after 3 sessions, she was happy. She explained what was going on. I gave her some strategies. So, for example, power reversal play is a lovely way of getting the child to feel empowered. So you put him on her back and give him a piggyback ride, and he would tap her shoulders and tell her where to go. And he thought it was wonderful. And if you tap this way, and she could just go in a circle, and he's laughing, and he's high up, so he's off the ground, feeling really like big and strong, and they love it. Or you can, if it's really wintry and you just don't want to go outside, you can go into the car, if they're okay in the car, and say, "Right, we've got 10 minutes, and I want you to tell me where I'm going to drive today." And they tell you, go left, go right, or that way, this way. And they love it. Or you can go on a walk and they can do the same thing. It's just flipping the whole thing. And it's incredible how they respond. Another thing before I move on is like a pillow fight. And the fact that they can, use all that, take that energy out on you. And if you like, "Oh, you've got me," and they completely pummel you, they absolutely love that. And it's a safe way of them saying, "I'm frustrated, I don't like this right now," but nobody's getting hurt. Okay. Hold that thought if you're thinking, "Oh my God, it's going to get out of hand," and they never stop. Completely come and talk to me about that afterwards if you want. But this is, I think, the game changer. Okay. When it's coming to playfulness, I've got to be playful, I should be playing with my child, oh my God. This is why I've started the model with pausing before playing. This is about the power of pausing. We pause to find perspective. And sometimes we can just step back sometimes. We can step back and be grateful, or step back to notice, okay, what's really going on here? It can really help. We pause to identify mindset blocks in us, things that are maybe going on. This is a trigger for me. Maybe I should look into this for myself. And often parents who work with me because of their children's behavior, we then get to work in a deeper way together on things that are really getting in the way of them enjoying parenting or enjoying that connection, because they just feel disconnected. So that's why I studied as a quantum energy coach. And that is a way of working with subconscious mindset blocks that can often get in the way, or past trauma that is being triggered by your child's behavior. So really, really important to start to think about that. We can pause to regulate. Sometimes we need to regulate ourselves and just go before we deal with the situation. We can pause to attune to what the child needs. This attunement is such a powerful thing. I have a lovely episode with Mama Manon from Australia in the first season of Play Healing Parent podcast, and we talk about attunement. But it's really just imagine the old radios where you had to tune in. If we're stressed and we're like buzzing up here, I'm sure you've noticed all the bees throughout this talk. My name means bee. And I was that buzzy, anxious mum running around, burning the candle at both ends. And I needed to learn how to be present and to tune into what my child needs, not just assume, oh, they just need feeding, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to take them to the park, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that. It's like, no, pause. Where's my child at right now? Where am I at? Pausing to be present and pausing to practice some self-care. I was listening to Mel Robbins on the Diary of a CEO podcast, and she was talking about our need to be seen and heard and celebrated. And this goes right back to attachment. And we haven't got time to go into attachment today, but that bond between parent and child starts, with that beautiful eye contact between the caregiver and the child, if they've been lucky to have that. And as the child grows, they still have that need to be seen, to be heard, to be celebrated, to be understood. And that's this connection that we're trying to go for, isn't it? So a few practical ways that we can pause. I was given this book. I've just left my job, so I'm doing play healing full time now. And they gave me this book, Do Pause. Who's it by? Robert Hoynton. You Are Not a To-Do List. And they all know that I talk about pausing and playing and stuff. And this counts to one thing just really resonates. People say count to 5, count to 10, count down from 5, count to 3. He was like, count to 1. And these Zen Buddhists, when they go into a Zen monastery, the door to the meditation hall has this kind of lip on the bottom that you have to stop and then step over to enter the meditation room. And he was saying that just the act of having to stop and step over into that place just counts to 1. It's just that one step. Okay, I'm entering in. And when we're with our children, sometimes we just need to count okay, what do you need right now? Or whatever it is. If they're just about to fall off the kitchen counter, and you're kind of like, oh my God, you're going to naturally just get in there and you're going to need to just catch that child. However, often, if we can just wait and pause, useful, wonderful things can happen. And we might be just a little bit more measured in how we respond. I have visual reminders. I don't know if you can see this because I can't see what you can see, but on my wrist, I tell some of my parents to just do a couple of lines as a pause sign, just to remind us throughout the day to just exhale and pause. Or just pause and practice some gratitude. We can do some breath work. We can just focus on those micro moments of connection and practice mindfulness. Yeah, really just taking the present moment in and pausing. We can also just do a movement. It might be just a stretch as we breathe, or doing a bit of yoga. Whatever we need just to regulate our body. Because we might start off the day at a 1. I do 1 to 5, okay? 1 is I'm calm. Then you get 2, a little bit more irritable. 3, frustrated. 4, I'm about to blow. 5 is I'm a volcano. I've just exploded. Get out my way. Same goes for kids, right? And I found as a mum, as the day went on, my cortisol levels, my stress hormones in my body would rise as the day went on. And then it would just take that one little thing to just light me up, and I'd be on fire shouting about someone's just dropped some Lego on the floor or something. And what we can do, so anger management is not what we do when we're at a 5, okay? When we're at a 5, it's too late. Cortisol's flooded your brain. You can't think, if I do this, this will happen. all reasoning, outside the door, flip the lid, bye-bye. What we need to do is we need to manage our anger, our stress response, when it's at a 2 or a 3. Okay, I can feel this irritation in me right now. I'm the adult, so I'm going to use my toolkit and I'm going to just take that breath. I teach some breathing in my one-to-one classes, and coherent breathing, just whatever we need to do just to calm ourselves down. So I hope this helps, and we're just coming to land now. This is the play healing parenting flow that I talk about around the world and love to talk about in companies and all sorts of places. It's this special flow that we've birthed through play healing. And if you remember this, brilliant. I've actually got a link to a Journey to Playfulness download. If you put your email in, it's a sort of 6-page PDF, and it's got this in it. It's about finding that playful side. So if you want to, feel free to download that, and then we'll be connected. But hopefully you can understand now why it's so important to pause before we use play to build connection. So if you're into journaling, and I know there's been a session recently about journaling, I've got 3 takeaways of questions that you might want to think about. One is, how can I incorporate play into my day more? How can I cultivate pausing during the day? You might want to put these lines on your hand a few times, because we're washing our hands all the time, aren't we, at the moment? But you might want to draw a pause or put something visually up, pause sign on the fridge. Yeah, it helps some parents to do that. And where are the areas of disconnect between myself and my child? What's going on in me? Why am I feeling so alone? Why am I feeling so frustrated right now? Where's the disconnect? So look for those micro moments for connection. It might be a facial expression, sticking your tongue out at them. It might be a little thumb war. And remembering that to feel playful, you need to cultivate that kind of relaxed state. So I'm going to be open for questions in a second. I'm Debbie. I'm the founder of Play Healing CIC, which is a community interest company, so we can get funding. I've got the podcast. I've got a 2nd season coming out next year. I do speaking and training, one-to-ones. Just get in touch if you feel like you just want to chat through some stuff. And I do a lot on Zoom. I've also run retreats, and I sometimes meet up with clients in some wonderful hotels. I go into businesses. I've also run parenting masterminds in the past. But these are my details if you want to connect. And I'll put this link again in the notes in the chat. I'm on playhealing.com, it's my website, but do just find me on Instagram. So if you can't make the link work, or you've got any other questions, or you just want to get in touch, I'm on Instagram at playhealingofficial. It'd be lovely to connect with you guys. And yeah, thank you so much for having me today.
That their problem is that constant buzzing, finding it hard to be still, or either that or they feel anxious.
Yes.
So have you got any kind of tips for that, like the getting rid of the constant buzzing, or the, you know, when you're in kind of an anxious state, how you can kind of use the pause to
yeah,
the play?
yeah, there's lots of things you can do, but every person's different, and I'm very passionate about emphasizing that there's no one size fits all. So I might say things that you think, that's not going to work for me, or I might say things you're like, oh, I've never tried that. So it's a collaboration here, and do put in the chat what works for you. I'd love to hear. But I was probably anxious till I was about 37, and I'm 40 now. So I thought that I was calm, when actually I was in a freeze kind of state. I was actually just frozen. And everyone thought I was kind of this funny, kind of bubbly, crazy person. But actually, I was kind of ADHD, kind of just heightened all the time. Go, go, go. So I didn't realize this until I experienced that calm in my body and worked in this kind of quantum energy field and learned about that connection with my body again, because I was actually quite disconnected. When I was going through some really tough stuff with my husband, um, he's had kind of two mental breakdowns basically. The first time though, brought up a lot of stuff, and I I went to this life coach, and she was like, "How are you feeling? And how are you feeling?" And I couldn't articulate how I was feeling. I was like, I just didn't know. I was just such an expert of pushing all my emotions down and soldiering on, pushing my emotions down, soldiering on, because she's so busy, right, with the kids and everything, and they were young at the time, that I just felt disconnected, and I was. She had to give me a piece of paper with all these emotions on, and I was like going down the piece of paper for 5 minutes before I could say how I was feeling, because I was so numb. So that kind of heightened state takes a lot of work, and sometimes you need a therapist or a coach to help you to identify what's really going on here. But also things like yoga. There's an amazing guy called Bessel van der Kolk who wrote this book called The Body Keeps the Score. And he is fantastic. And he talks about that sometimes the power of yoga was people doing regular yoga practice was just as effective as using medication. Now, don't quote me on that, and don't suddenly stop medication. Like, I've used medication, I use talking therapy and medication together, which is a good combination, really good combination if you can. And never just come off medication suddenly. We all know that. Please don't take medical advice. But there is a real power on learning about what helps to keep your body calm. I would have reading time with the kids when I was on my own with the kids. Even when they didn't have a nap time, I'd get them to read books, or maybe now go on the iPad or whatever. And I would lie on my bed for 15 minutes, I could, and do some meditation, because I felt that by lunchtime, I had just had enough. I completely lost it, and I was just not coping very well. I could feel that stress in my body. But after I'd done a bit of meditation and lying down, I could feel that calm come again. And I went from that sort of 3 back to a 1. So I had more reserve to cope for the rest of the day. Did you ever find 5 and 6 o'clock at night also the total nightmare time? So they're hungry and they're tired. Yeah. Anyway, going back to anxiety. So it's putting structures in your day. This pause thing, just taking those moments to breathe. There's a really wonderful breathing technique. If you want to get in touch with me, it's called heart coherent breathing. And it's not thinking about your lungs expanding. It's thinking about your heart expanding. Because actually, research has shown that your heart absorbs the energy around you and the stress, and then tells your brain there's a threat, and then your brain tells the body threat, alarm goes off. Yeah, your amygdala gets triggered. So yeah, it's a really, really crazy response. I found as well when I worked with the first life coach that when she explained how my brain works and why I was feeling the way I was feeling. So I used to have panic attacks and my whole body would freeze up. I remember walking up a hill and my children, as young, very young, running ahead, and I start getting a panic attack and I can't move. And then I start crying, and so all these things, when we realized, when she explained what was going on in my body, and I learned how to start to detect when I wasn't breathing deep enough and when I was starting to hyperventilate, then I could do something about it. It's catching it early. It's really learning to catch it early. I could go on all night about anxiety, but I'm going to stop. But keep any questions coming in, and I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, we've got a few more questions. So one is, my youngest son's in reception class He's loud and crazy at home, but stops talking when he gets to school. Is there a way the teacher can encourage him to play and open up more? He's behind with his speech, but they never hear him talk. So unsure how they can help and support his speech and language development if they can't hear him talk.
Yeah, I was a reception teacher and I had some children going through that exact thing. And I remember the parents going, but they talk at home. And then they come to school and they're like, they don't say boo to a goose. And I also was a play therapist for a girl who would do the same thing. It was called selective mutism. Is that what they've called it for you? They would call it selective mutism. So you know they can talk, but then in certain situations, their environments, they stop and they just freeze up. Okay. So I'm not a speech therapist, and I'd recommend working with a speech therapist 100%. But I do know about this whole threat response. And when a child isn't feeling totally safe, then things like freeze states can come. So it sounds like it might be a kind of freeze response. I don't know what the body does. I've not seen the child, but maybe the shoulders come up a little bit more, or they don't play as much or interact with others. It's heartbreaking. It is so hard as a parent to see your child go from one state to the completely other state when you know, because you can't control it, and you're like, you kind of want to get in their head and go, it's okay, you're okay, show them what you can do, and you can't. And that is so hard as a parent. And all I can say is that time can really help. Let go at the pace of your child. Give that child time. There is so much pressure on teachers and that feeling as a parent that my child should be hitting this landmark or this learning development mark, and should be really kind of at this stage, and you're comparing yourself to other people, and you start to panic, and you think, it can affect your sense of self-esteem. But my advice would be to pause, find that perspective, know that they can talk because they do it at home, they can play, they can socialize, or whatever they can do, and to try and work with the teacher to help that child feel safe. So it might be a transitional object, or invisible string. There's a lovely book called Invisible String, where you imagine this bit of invisible string that going from your heart to the child, knowing that you're always there. All these little things. It's a nightmare if they bring something into reception and they lose it. It's a bloody nightmare. So invisible string's great. You can't lose it. Anyway, I could go on again. There's stuff in my podcast, I think that transition one that might help. But yeah, I don't know. Please put in the chat if anyone wants to talk and say any more about that, because I don't know if I've answered your question. Is everyone okay?
Yeah. They say he plays, but on his own. He's happy to go to school. He just doesn't talk. He's with speech and language therapy only just. Thank you for your advice.
Oh, great. That's really helpful. Brilliant. I'm so glad they've put a referral in for speech and language already. That's really good to do it in the first term. That's good tip for your school, because sometimes teachers won't put referrals in for months and months and months. So that's really good. And playing on their own, do you know what? Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry about that. 100%. Some of the most intelligent children I've met really love to play on their own. And they're just processing differently. So.
Okay, I've got some more for you, Deb. The biggest problem I find is, as a single parent, you've got to run the house on your own. So trying to find time to play is difficult. I feel that when I'm trying to get things done, my daughter wants to play, but I'm too busy. And it gets to the point she gets on my nerves and I get angry. I know it shouldn't happen, but it does.
It does. Yeah. And I still lose it with my children. 100%. As you know, I'm not officially a single mum. I was solo parenting for about 4 months because one of my children was filming with my husband. And I also had 4 puppies at the same time. So I had a full-time job, 4 puppies, and solo parenting. So I can't say I know what it's like, but I kind of have an idea, and it's tough. And she was older, but yes, it's tough. I would say these micro moments, just stop putting pressure on yourself that you have to be this kind of Julie Andrews, Sound of Music styly kind of parent who's kind of like, oh, and just playing all the time, and everything's just flowing. You've got the birds doing all your housework. It doesn't happen, does it? It really doesn't. So just pause and just try and find the moments where you can. Sometimes just pausing the cooking, going down to their level and saying, do you know what? I can see you really want to play right now. Can you see that mummy needs to do this? It's acknowledging where they're at, or setting them off. Sometimes if you play with them for like 3 to 5 minutes, we set up some Play-Doh, or you set them up with something. I've got Play-Doh right here, keeping me going. If you set them off, then sometimes they will continue to play and you can get on. So sometimes that's a strategy that works.
Any suggestions for certain play ideas for behaviour issues with a 3-year-old who lashes out, hits, screams, etc.? I've tried empathy stories and I know he understands his feelings as well as right from wrong.
Yes, children are starting to learn about their emotions at 3 and 4 and things. Very basic, happy, sad, maybe. But their brains don't finish developing until they're 25, you know? And so we can pause and find perspective here on, okay, there's a reason for your behavior right now. It might be you're hungry, you're tired, you're frustrated about something you can't have. There's going to be a reason. So we can use that pause, play, connect model with this, can't we? So we can pause and think, okay, did I feed him recently? Or did he just come in from school or nursery and or what's going on here? And then how can we connect? How can we play? So sometimes we can redirect that energy if we can spot it early. But one of the secrets of this is, as you get to know your child, you can read the signs before they completely blow. It's not always possible with 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds. They just blow sometimes, don't they? They just absolutely lose it. You're like, oh my God. But I don't know if I'm answering the question, but pausing, helping yourself to stay calm and regulated, because if your voice goes high or loud or something, that will just keep their threat response high, and that eruption will go on for longer. So one of the things we can do is try and just keep ourselves regulated, make sure they're safe. We don't always have to hold them. We don't always have to try and reason with them. There's no reasoning going on when they're in that state. Yeah, you can't say how you're feeling right now. I was working with some child who was sort of 12 and had to be hospitalized, and the parent couldn't cope with these episodes because they were erupting. They had to call the police, all this kind of stuff. Now I had to work with that mum to work on the language, because she was trying to talk at the child, the teenager, when they were having this response, and that child was just getting worse and worse because they were trying to reason and, how are you feeling? Come on, tell me how you're feeling right now. And they were like, shut the fuck up. It was just, makes it worse. Excuse my language. So, so pausing, keeping yourself regulated, trying to tune into what's going on, and things like letting them bash a pillow. We had Anger Rules. There's a lovely book called A Volcano in My Tummy, and she talks about the anger rules. It's okay to be angry, but we don't hurt ourselves, we don't hurt other people, and we don't damage property. So you can, instead of don't, because children's brains, they don't hear the not, so we do damage property, we do. So we keep ourselves safe, we keep other people safe, and we keep property safe. We could say it like that, right? But it's just trying to install those kinds of values as we go, and keeping it simple at that age, really simple. So it's okay to punch a pillow, because your hands aren't going to get hurt when you punch a pillow. It's okay to stamp your feet. And sometimes I will do that with a child. It looks like you've got big emotions right now. Yeah. You don't have to name exactly what it is because we might not know. And the child might not know, but it's just like, you seem to be having really big feelings. Oh dear, this is hard. All sorts of ways you can do it. I'd love to sort of talk more about it as in a one-to-one setting because I'm having to generalize now, and every situation is different. So it might not be what you need right now. So just take things lightly with what I'm saying. But yeah, I hope that helped. Girl is going through the separation of her dad and me and has started lying. Puts a sticker in the toilet, blames a boy at nursery. He does it, and checking with the nursery that the boy is super sweet and plays well with my daughter. She's just started this now, thinking it's separation related. Any advice? About lying, I've done a blog. If you go to my playhealing.com website, I've done a blog about why kids lie. It's just my take on it, just some ideas. It sounds like you're saying that you think it might be because it's the separation. Yes, sometimes it can be that. And if you're feeling that in your gut, then it might be true because you know your child more than I do. So yes, it's sometimes when a child feels helpless. Do you remember we were talking about that feeling of helplessness, something that they can't control? They can't control one area, they want to control another, or build a world up that's kind of maybe false. And so that can happen. So that compassionate curiosity, that curious approach would be really effective now. And kind of trying to ignore whether they're lying or not, instead of accusing, are you telling the truth? Or why are you lying to me? Yeah. Instead of kind of that approach, let's look underneath and think, right, how can I make this child feel safe and loved through all this kind of craziness right now? And how we can do that is through play. So maybe the things like the piggybacks, row your boat with that kind of age child. You've got the lovely eye contact going on, you've got the movement, and they can pull you, and they can pull you over, and you're like, oh, yeah. So you can really kind of just explore simple, playful moments. Just keep building that connection, see what happens, but get in touch. I'd love to know more. And there's another thing here. She has a 9-month-old sister who's obviously getting a lot of attention from me, and she still breastfeeds and needs to be carried. Yes. Oh my gosh. So you've got a 2-year-old and you've got a 9-month-old. Wow, you're amazing. I had 22 months between mine, and that was enough. So God, I don't know how you do it. Yes, it's so hard. And when they cry at the same time, isn't it awful? I just remember that. I just still remember that feeling when they're both upset at the same time. It's just unbearable. You know, get that community around you, get the Frollo community around you, yeah? And let's get these people going through what you're going through and feeding in, chipping in, giving you ideas. But if it feels all overwhelming and it doesn't resonate with you, pause and go, what do I think my child needs right now? Yeah, so don't go to Google too much right now. Work on, how can I keep as calm as possible? How can I keep as present as possible? How can I connect with my child in this moment as many times as possible? It's not going to be all the time, so please be kind to yourself right now. But lots of love to you, and let me know if there's anything else I can say. Okay, someone's given me an email address. Thank you, it was extremely helpful and amazing. Oh, that's really sweet of you. Thank you very much. Got the reception class done. Yeah, I think certain play for 3-year-old who lashes out, hits screens, we've done that. Empathy stories, yeah, and stories are really good when they're regulated, but it's hard when they're actually dysregulated and doing the whole screaming and lashing out, isn't it? So, and actually, let me just add, sorry. Research has shown that Dr. Bruce Perry was working with these children who had seen shootings, okay, so had really major trauma. And these children were being looked after by a lot of professionals. So you had youth workers and psychotherapists and counsellors, all these people. He said that children would only open up for a few seconds and then close down again. And they'd go to another person and open up maybe, or want to play football. And then they'd say something about the experience, the shooting, and then they'd close down again. And then they'd go to someone where they felt heard and seen, or they needed different people within their community when they were feeling different emotions and different things. And I'm not summarizing it very well because it's late, but it's about the micro moments. It wasn't about, right, I'm just going to put my child in 50 minutes of therapy and that therapist is going to sort them out for those 50 minutes. Our bodies don't process trauma like that. It comes out in different moments throughout the day, throughout the years. Just as when you split up with someone and you hear a song that reminds you of that partner, or a moment of good or bad, that music can trigger all of those emotions back again, yeah? And the same can go with our children. So be kind to yourselves. It's been a real privilege to be with you tonight. You guys have been amazing to stay out for so much of your night. And please connect with me. I'd love to hear from you individually. And thank you for having me.